But all right, Mark Sargent, welcome to the portal, man. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, I first came across your work about a year ago, and it was actually on a YouTube channel. I'm not going to name any names, but and then I came across your interview with George Norrie, and then he mentioned something that I had no idea about. So you're a professional computer game player?
I was. That's how I started my career. When I before that I was a sous chef at a Greek restaurant, and I won a little computer pinball tournament years ago called Crystal Calibran Pinball by a Japanese developer. And the producer of that game, the publisher out of Boulder, Colorado, we got to talking, and they wanted me to come out. And so yeah, I was a ringer for 3 years, traveling around the country, doing conventions, like Macworld Boston, Macworld San Francisco, E3. Yeah, and so I played games and made them look a lot better than they actually were.
Okay, with this little radio show I'm doing, usually I like to try to pick at people's brains a little bit,
Hmm.
and so some things maybe just be I might throw a punch here, a punch there,
Sure.
just like with this one. With you being a computer game player
Yeah.
and with the whole flat earth theory and everything,
Hmm.
what let's say that the flat earth does exist, and I know on your end you believe it exists,
Hmm.
but if the flat earth does exist and then everything else like outside of the flat earth is all I don't know, simulation or whatever, do you think that we could possibly be part of a simulated universe or something like that?
Possible, but for me, I think it's a little more elegant than that. And I haven't been shy about saying it to people, and that is what I think is outside of this. Because I'll take the religious track on what I think is outside of this. Some people call it heaven, nirvana,
Hmm.
Shambhala. But I think it's an unlimited universe outside of this, where the abilities are unlimited. Now, you can put whatever name you want on that. I think it's the opposite of where we are now. If where we are now is a heavily restricted place of conflict and misery and suffering, not to steal too much from Agent Smith of the Matrix, then
Hmm.
what's outside of this is the exact opposite. So yeah, could it be a simulation? Sure. I mean, it could be a machine within a machine within a machine, but like I try to tell people, I live every day one world at a time. So I try not to go too far beyond the boundaries of where we are now.
And if anybody else is familiar with your work and find it too much, but it seems like this is almost like a prison planet, though.
Yeah, and there's been some people that kind of touched on it, not to name the show that's called Prison Planet, or the fact that one of the YouTubers called Jake Blastard, he treats it he treats it very hostile. It's like, oh, it's like
Hmm.
we're locked in. It's a prison planet. We got to fight to get out. It's possible. You could go one of two ways with this, and that is, are we locked in? To keep us from getting out like a box of scorpions that you don't want getting out, or are we
Yeah.
protected like a box of kittens that you don't want to let them get out because what's outside of here could be dangerous? Again, or if you want to take the religious track, are we locked in because the first tenants of this apartment were the fallen ones? From way back when, and it's a jailbreak scenario, which is also possible, which I've talked about.
So this kind of, I guess, kind of gets down to the enclosed world model, or the closed Earth model,
Hmm.
kind of like with Under the Dome. I'm sure you've seen the television show Under the Dome, correct?
Yeah, written by Stephen King, produced by Steven Spielberg. Yeah, very high
Uh-huh.
profile. Yeah, and it's currently running right now, which is also amazing. Yeah.
I what season are they in? Four or five?
I think it's four. I think they're just starting four. I hadn't really, honestly, after the first season, I kind of saw where they were going, but it wasn't that interesting to me because it was such a small, it was just one town that was inside this enclosure. I was going, yeah, it's kind of cool.
Uh-huh.
But everything I was thinking about was much, much bigger. But yeah, I totally get the concept, and that is a barrier, a dome-like barrier. Again, some predictive programming there that you're under that you can't get out of. So.
Okay, I got one for you. It might blow your mind, or you probably have already heard of it before,
Hmm.
of the theory. And I was going to make a YouTube video the other day, and I said, I just wait till I interview Mark Sargent.
Hmm.
But okay, you've heard with all the strange noises and sounds in the atmosphere over the past couple years.
Oh yeah, yeah, especially coming out of Russia and all the Eastern Bloc countries. Yeah.
Okay, my theory is, and this may have already been somebody else's theory, I don't know, but let's say that this enclosed Earth model,
Hmm.
like we are under a dome,
Yeah.
what if those noises are actually coming from the barrier, from the dome itself?
Oh yeah. Oh, wouldn't yeah, and yeah, I've had several emails along those lines, mostly tied to the Book of Enoch, Enoch. One of the non-canonized books of the Bible, which means it didn't get in. It was close, but it didn't get published in the main Bible, where they describe in the Book of Enoch that the world structure is highly mechanical, and there's a lot of machinery involved. And where there is machinery, as you know, there's a lot of noise, a big noise, because you're talking about very, very big pieces. You ever have any doubt, go
Hmm.
down to some industrial sector of anywhere in the country. There's a lot of weird noises coming on from there. Multiply that by 10,000, and yeah, anyone has any doubts, look up the strange noises from the sky on YouTube. You're going to find some creepy stuff.
What actually brought that to my attention was I was watching the TV show Under the Dome, and I forgot what season it was. I think it was the third season to watch, the last one I watched. And the dome itself was making noises. It started crystallizing.
Oh wow. Yeah, yeah. Wouldn't again? We're why we're in so much uncharted territory right now. But yeah, completely open to because we again the structure of the dome right now is all speculation, which is what's it made out of? Is it a heavy element? Is it a form of glass? Is it a frequency barrier? Is it just just some weird warp in physics where it's a G-force? Is it a soft barrier that you can't actually physically touch? You can only kind of feel the pushback. Is it radiation? Like they described, very awkwardly with the Van Allen radiation belts in 1959. We don't know, but yeah, do I think it's part of a giant mechanical process? Yes, I have since day one.
What does mostly flat earthers that are out there,
Yeah.
what is what would you say the bigger percentage is when it comes to an enclosed earth model like a dome,
Hmm.
or a not, or just or something to
Or
the
just
contrary?
like an open plane type situation.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough call. And again, I'm not. If it ends up being an endless plane without a dome, hey, great. I will not lose sleep, and I'm not going to curl up in a corner with a bottle of Jack Daniels and start drinking. The people involved, the main proponent of the unlimited, the flat endless plane with no barriers, no restrictions, that would be Matt Boylan, otherwise known as Math Powerland. And
Hmm.
he's been talking about that for several years. He's one of the old guard when it comes to this. I, however, will go along with a lot of the texts from all the big five religions, which is Hinduism, Judaism, Buddhism, Islam, and Christianity, that
Hmm.
that all talk about a version of, we'll use the Christian version, the firmament from Genesis 1:6, and that is a barrier and it just makes more sense because you can do
Yeah.
much more with a barrier, in my opinion. If anyone has any doubts, look at how we build a planetarium. That's what we're really talking about here. Is like a giant Truman Show planetarium. It's so much more efficient. You can do so much more with it. Because I get a lot of people that say, for example, is there like even if there was a barrier, they go, is there space outside of it? And I go, well, why would you need space outside of it? I mean, it could be anything outside of it. If you're faking space on the inside, then why would you need real space on the outside? Why, at that point, just take the dome off, and then you have your endless plane. So, as far as the percentage goes, I think for the majority of the people believe in a dome-like structure. That's my guess. But it's still open to interpretation, and whatever it turns out being, we know absolutely that one thing we can all agree on is it's not a globe.
Well, here's my theory. If let's say that the flat Earth does exist on my side,
Hmm.
then my theory is, because we everybody that is believes in extraterrestrials and that we're being visited by aliens and UFOs, that those are watchers, and those are the angels. Some of those are metaphors back in some of the religious texts, such as the burning chariots. And because we were talking about metaphors a while ago,
Sure.
let's say that this flat Earth, just like we were talking about a while ago about a prison planet.
Yep.
Maybe it's more like a ant colony. Maybe it's like their science experiment.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
maybe if this closed world model with like under the dome
Yeah.
does exist, maybe they are only the ones that can penetrate it.
Oh yeah, well that I have no doubt, because that's how you'd want it. You'd never want to give us the technology, or call it the household chemicals. You'd never want to give us the ability to actually break out, even though it looks like we've tried in multiple fashions. With atomic weapons starting in the late 1950s, possibly HARP using frequency, possibly CERN. Using, trying to break the laws of physics with a God particle itself. Very, very possible. And to your point, by the way, there's so many interesting religious references to how this an enclosed system, how it works so much better. I'd take Joshua, the story that where Joshua asked the sun and the moon to be held in the sky for an extra day so they can fight longer against their enemies. That's
Hmm.
or again, the one that I put in the clue, the Tower of Babel. Tower of Babel makes no sense on a spinning globe in a solar system that's traveling around the galaxy. But on a stationary model, you know exactly what they're doing. They're trying to
Yeah,
reach the top. They're trying to build a bridge or a stairway to heaven, as it were.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I guess, well, if this flat Earth, well, many of I guess my listeners, because I have talked about this on Facebook and I've talked about it just with some of my friends.
Hmm.
And one of the biggest questions that comes up is, well, what does it look like? Let's say you could observe the flat Earth from the outside
Yeah.
of wherever that outside is, outside the dome or whatever. What does the flat Earth look like, in your opinion?
In my opinion, it doesn't. All right. What really comes down to is, does it look like a straight up snow globe, or does it look like a shallow sports stadium? I think it's somewhere in between. And that is, I think the dome arch is fairly shallow by comparison. So and I'm still kind of leaning towards one of Jeffrey Grupp's older models anyway, because I really like it. I know he's working on a new model and he hasn't quite figured it out yet. But what I kind of the one I like to use is like a $half if you cover it with a fairly big salad bowl. So the salad bowl is way oversized for the $half, and so you have a lot of room between the edge of where we are and the outer barrier, which would make sense because let's say you do go down to Antarctica and you start, you don't want the edge to be so close that even somebody accidentally with just a modest amount of supplies would be able to
Mm.
get to the edge, which makes sense for the Admiral Byrd thing, because here he
Hmm.
is flying around with a plane for 30 years almost, could not find it in 30 years. And, he's a fairly thorough guy and, our greatest living explorer at the time. And, you set up refueling stations and you're making sweeping patterns. And even then it took 30 years to figure it out. So the edge has got to be way out there. And then when they found it, it's like, okay, because that's what they were looking for. It's like, okay, now that we found, the outer edge, let's see what we can do about the upper edge. And that's when the rocket program started between the United States and the Soviet Union. That sort of
It
makes.
up. Um, do you think Admiral Byrd was suppressed when he went to his deathbed of the knowledge of flat Earth?
1957. Yeah, I do. I like to. I always try to think of the glass half full. I try to stay an optimist in these cases. But he really, let's face it. I mean, he's down there for 30 years, and then he does Operation Deep Freeze from 55 to 56. And you got to remember that between these missions, he was doing promotional tours throughout the world, being interviewed by a lot of people. And I think at some point maybe he even objected and said, "Look, what's the big deal? This could change
Hmm.
everything." And the powers that be, look, I totally understand the logic they were going, and it wouldn't have taken much, maybe a simple vote. It's like, all right, do we trust him not to screw up during one of these interviews, especially in the States? Or do we, when some paper might report it, because they didn't have total control of the media back then, and or do we take care of it? And so yeah, he died supposedly of a heart attack in 1957, shortly after Operation Deep Freeze. Yeah, yeah, I do think he was suppressed. Either that, or he literally died because he, as an explorer, he saw the end of it. He literally made it to the end of the world, which would depress anybody. But I don't think that was it. I think it would take a lot longer in that case.
Well, I've actually heard that it was really a conspiracy that he didn't really die. I think, yeah, it was a heart attack, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
That it was because he was going to expose the truth. But
Yeah,
that's
yeah, and then you can make up any story you want about how he died.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, again, he would have been, yeah, I know people question his motives and stuff, but he could have been a straight up guy when it comes to the truth about certain things. I mean, he's an explorer, and if he found the edge of the world, that would be the ultimate piece of information that because he was really proud about talking about things. It's about what I found and what we did, and yeah. So yeah, I do think he was
Why
suppressed.
why keep it suppressed? Because it seems like Antarctica it's on everybody's agenda when it comes to every nation in the world. It seems like they all want to occupy Antarctica. And why is this suppressed for?
You mean why keep it a secret starting in the
Yeah, yeah.
1950s? Well, the three big reasons are academic, religious, and then really, to the individual. And by what I mean academic is think of the chaos. Initially, the ripples that start going in the academic community, and we're talking from grade school all the way through your PhD in college, and that is your astrophysics and your astronomy departments. Those go away immediately, and then the remaining physical sciences like geology, hydrology, archaeology, biology, just take your pick. They all have to be retooled for the new model. You got to throw away a lot of textbooks, and you got to. That's just the academic side, and then you have the religious side, and that I think worried the authority more than anything, which was you're talking about your big five religions who have been looking for some sort of proof of intelligent design forever.
Hmm.
And for the last 500 years, they're told, oh, yeah, by the way, evolution's the way it's at, the Big Bang Theory, and God doesn't exist, and so on and so on. You're basically giving them proof of intelligent design right then and there, all of them at once. And if you think the religion's going to sit back real quietly and just say, oh, well, that's interesting. No, no, no. There will be pulpit speeches like you've never seen ever, where they will just come after science and just start crushing them. And they'll take it too far. I firmly believe that even though that religion has a tendency to get real heated, depending on
Hmm.
which religion you're talking about. And the third reason, which of course is the part that I still think is the message of hope in all this, is that if it is intelligent design, and if we're talking about a creator and it was created and there were builders, then there's been a parent looking over our shoulder our entire lives and all lives before that, which means we are accountable at that point. And even though you might not be able to see who it is, the sky still looks the same. It's not like it's covered with eyeballs at this point.
Hmm.
Are you still going to do the things that you've done in the past? Anyone going to go to war again? Are you really going to rob that liquor store? Are you really going to hit somebody? Are you going to kill somebody? You going to do any of these bad things? Are you going to do anything malicious to someone ever again? And I touched on that in Clue 11, where I was talking. Look, at this point, I think the astronauts can't even when I said that the Apollo astronauts wouldn't swear on the Bible because they knew the truth. It's like, are you really going to swear knowing full well that you are accountable for your actions? And I think it's a great message for us, and that is again, which is why I end the videos the way I do. Treat others better than you treat yourself. Pay it forward. Do the right thing.
Hmm.
Don't lash out at people just because you're having a bad day. Don't take it out on people. It's the wrong way to go. Pay it forward.
Yeah,
Do good things.
correctly.
So
And who was it that was it Pythagoras or Aristotle that proved or that wrote about the Earth being a sphere?
well, the first guy, the one that I always quote is Copernicus.
As
But
Copernicus?
there's others that have done the math and said, okay, it's got to be a sphere, and yeah, you're on the right track. But all those guys, how I still think, even though it was man, we can credit it to different science guys from the past.
Hmm.
I think this was supposed to be. We were supposed to think it was a sphere for a while because again, it's brilliant. If you put a globe model into this system, what it does is, I talked about this in one of the clues. It takes away the fence. It makes the fence completely invisible because you think,
Yeah.
oh well, you're on a sphere, therefore you can't go anywhere. So if that's the case, then this was supposed to be part of a natural process because it buys you time, and by time I mean in our case, our civilization, it buys us about 500 years because it takes that long before the technology catches up to where you can detect the subtleties of a structure like this. Like the outer edge. I mean, let's be straight here. without the internal combustion engine, we're never finding the edge. Until that happens, we're never getting out there, because then you don't have advanced or more advanced air travel. And until you can get rockets, the rocket program didn't even happen until the late 1950s. You can't figure out the upper part of the structure. So again, I still love the fact that we went hundreds of years and told everybody it was a globe, even though there was no actual proof. And by that, I mean a freaking photograph or a witness of anybody that got up that high and said, oh yeah, it actually is a globe. It was all math. It was all, just teachers teaching, teaching teachers for years and years.
Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt you,
No,
but
go ahead.
but one thing that I do not understand, and it proves, I guess, a little bit towards the flat earthers, is how did the sphere model, the globe model, become accepted by academia whenever they're really, I guess, how could they prove it back then?
Well, they couldn't, but science was getting stronger and stronger. And again, I still think it was part of the process. I think whoever built this place helped it along, helped the process along. But you're absolutely right. The leap of faith. You think what's weird what we're talking about now, where it's like, oh yeah, we're going back to a flat Earth. The leap of faith 500 years ago. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, it's not a flat structure, covered by a big, firmament or anything like that. It's actually a spinning ball that's spinning at a speed that no one's ever witnessed. And that speed, multiply that by 60 times. That's how fast it's going around the sun. Oh yeah, by the way, we're actually going around the sun. The sun isn't going around us. And then, the solar system is flying through the galaxy. That is a massive leap of faith. But once academia latched onto it and they realized, I think, they could break away from the church with it, it was easy. I got to remember, everything was going to go that way. Once you got into the solar system, then you started developing into, okay, how did the solar system get built and how galaxies built, and then you go all the way to the Big Bang. And then you go down the other road and talk about evolution. And yeah, then religion just gets pushed further and further back, and they don't want to lose their memberships of the people, so they just kind of adapted. It's like, okay, well, it's not that big of a change. In a couple of generations, who's going to remember anyway? So let's go with the globe. And it doesn't change most of the messages we teach anyway, so who cares? And they just kind of let it happen, because if you fight it, at that point, it's easier to go along if the change, it's a compromise. And so that's why religion did it.
What could they achieve by saying that the Earth is a globe, though? Like, what purpose could that fit their agenda?
Well, that's just it. I don't think even they knew the agenda. I do think it was introduced artificially, meaning that the original idea of a globe was introduced by the builders themselves, because you have to do it if you want this thing to keep going on, and for us to act naturally. Not to say that we're in a giant wildlife preserve, but it kind of fits. If you want us to act naturally, you have to remove the edges. You've got to get rid of it, because, and I talked about this in the clues, and that is, human beings do not like being fenced in. That's why they call them jails and prisons. Mm-hmm. We hate it. Doesn't matter how big and comfortable it is. That's all we're going to care about, is who built it, why are we in here, how do we get out, and so again, I think it was part artificial. That's why would science care in the beginning? I don't think they would. But it tended to work out for them better, because science got stronger and stronger, and then they could use that to develop other theories, like the Big Bang theory, like relativity. I mean, once they got out into the whole space concept, oh yeah, the church had problems, because they were in completely new territory. And the church didn't have anything to respond with, and so science is like, oh yeah, we're doing this, and science became the new religion, or at least a competing one. Even though mostly, a lot of the people in this world still attend church in one form or another, science has become, they have preached their stuff now, and they've done a heck of a job for the last 500 years.
You mentioned something that really caught my attention a while ago. You mentioned the builders.
Yep.
You know what popped in my head, right?
What?
Freemasons. Because is that, you think this I guess debacle between the flat Earth and the globe model, do you think that is one of the main secrets that is part of the
Masonic? Yeah. I did a show on Jonathan's perceptions on Truth Frequency Radio. The show was called Masonic Flat Earth. And what we talked about, because I dug into it pretty deep, and you're absolutely right. When I looked into the Masonic side of things, at the highest levels, yes, absolutely, they knew because, and you can look at this. This is not secret information nowadays. I mean, the internet really screwed up the Masonic order because there's just so much information out there that gets spread out. Plus, you can buy the Masonic Bible on eBay. All the widows have been selling them for years. I owned 3 copies at one point when I was doing research, just going, "Wow, this is amazing." But there's 5 tracing boards that the Masonic looks at. You know what? Literally, 5, only 5, and they go into what this world is. You know, it lays it out in pretty straightforward fashion. How to get in, where you came from, where you are, what happens when you die, and the big message that has always permeated all of those tracing boards has been one simple phrase, and that is, "It was built." It was built. Not just created. It was built, like with tools, like with precision tools. It was built with precision. It was built with they kept leaving these tools around. It was built with extreme detail. And yeah, I think at the highest levels they knew. I mean, by that I mean you've got to be at least a 33rd or higher. 30 seconds not going to do it. 32nd and lower, all the way down to 1. You're just foot soldiers and officers. The generals, would be 33rds and higher, and I think even then it's a need to know basis. So, which makes sense because we've heard the rumors that all the Apollo astronauts were forced into being Masons before they were in the program. Why would you do that? Why, just for, just so you could have them on your roster and say, "Oh yeah, by the way, that astronaut's also a Mason." It's like, yeah, big deal. No, I think it was also because they wanted to. It was part of the process that you can't be told unless you were actually, it's breaking the rules if you aren't actually in the order before you're told. So yeah, I do think the Masons know at the highest levels, but not your average guy that's getting drunk and playing ping pong at the local lodge. So.
Yeah, it's almost like these Masons or a lot of these secrets that they say the Masons have, or a lot of these secret societies in general. It's almost like they are the workforce, the workers of the queen, of the queen ant. And it's like, it makes you wonder, is there, because religion does come into this.
Oh yeah.
And makes you wonder, are they the pawns? Are they the workforce? Are they the workers up for the queen, who we call God?
Yeah, maybe it's a tough call because there's been so much suspicion with so many different societies. Take your pick. Are we talking the Vatican? Which group are they all intertwined? Is it a big spider web, or is there any one that has more power over the others? Like, for example, I'll just throw out a couple names: the Illuminati, the Bilderbergs, the Trilaterals, the Rothschilds, the Jesuits, the Vatican, and a whole bunch more. But do the Masons have a part in it? Yeah, yeah. When they seem to get a lot stronger when the Priori of Sion and the Templars united after the Civil War in the United States back in the 1860s. Are they tied to, and I said this in my show when I was talking about Masonic Flat Earth, that they do seem to have one of the only artifacts that seemed to be real, which was the Signet of Solomon. Basically the magic ring, the Ring of Power. Don't think Lord of the Rings was just a movie, folks. Do I think they still have it? Yes, I do. Are they using it to influence things? Yeah, maybe. I don't know if they're the highest tier though. There's so many arguments along those lines. I mean, really, you can put this in a form and say, who is the most powerful secret society? And you will probably get 25 different answers right now. But the Masons are up there, no question. Absolutely no question. But they're getting older because they're not supposed to recruit publicly. So it's an older group now, and they're starting to fade, in my opinion.
And something else that comes to my mind. We're talking about the Masons. Okay, you've heard of the Skull and Bones,
of course. Yeah.
And their number, was it 322?
It sounds about right. Sure.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
And have you seen these? What are they called? Moon halos. Or also the number 22 kind of pops up in my head.
Okay.
Because the moon halos, I think they also call that 22 degrees or something like that.
Okay.
I think they do. I could be wrong. But anyways, that kind of brings the moon halos to my to the topic, because that was one of the main things that I think is, if there is an enclosed model like under the dome,
Hmm.
I think these moon halos is, it kind of proves that there is a dome, if it proves that the flat Earth does exist, and with the under the dome type of enclosed Earth model,
Uh,
because
oh yeah.
because I know a lot of people say that the sun and the moon is underneath the dome, but let's say that it's not. Let's
Yeah.
just say that it's not, and it's outside the dome. Wouldn't that make that halo?
It's very yeah, yeah. You're absolutely right, and quite a few people have been doing work on that. Not to give Jeffrey Krupp too much press during this thing, but he's done some wonderful. Like, so take your pick, between the moon halos, the sun dogs in both warm and cold
Mm-hmm.
weather, not just cold weather. The fact that rainbows are shaped like a dome when you're looking from the ground, but if
Mm.
you're up above them in a plane or a helicopter, they look like a giant ring, like a giant halo that's above the ground. And the thought is, when I read, that you can't have these sort of shapes without a reflective surface in addition to the sun, which means you have sunlight or moonlight and then a reflective surface in addition to that. So yeah, absolutely, there's something going on there, and I can't wait to, finally, when this thing does get revealed, to figure out the little nuances, because there's so many little street magic tricks that are being used here
Mm.
that I'm just dying to find out.
Speaking of Jeffrey Grupp, I interviewed Jeffrey Grupp a couple years ago. I've been a couple times on his books,
Yeah,
and yeah, he's loaded with information.
yeah.
But let's say, like, just like these moon halos and the rainbows, does that kind of prove that the sun is possibly outside the dome instead of inside?
Maybe. I could go either way. I mean, whatever it is, whether it's just inside or just outside, it's not going to make that much difference. It's one of those details. Like, I could go either way.
Yeah.
What we can tell you is, like, look, it's not 93 million miles away, and the moon isn't 237,000 miles away. The story I like to tell, at least for the people in the church, is, it's like, yeah, God said that that He made the sun and the moon, but it was NASA that said how far they were away. And you got to take. In fact, I think I was telling you. That what I one of the because I try to boil things down to where just about anybody can understand it. And I use the Disneyland reference a lot, and that is, look, if you have any doubt, go to the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland. I know it's an old ride, but you got to check it out. It's a little slow, but when you get to that end, when you get to the harbor, and you look out there, you will not be able to figure out where you are exactly. Yes, you're in a Hollywood studio, but you tell me where that horizon line is. You tell me how far away those stars are. You cannot see it because it's built to fool you. It's built as an illusion. So,
You think they're holograms?
oh, you mean the stars and the planets? I think they're part of the visual display system. Are they 3D or 2D? They could be either. When people keep saying, what are the stars and the planets? I'm going, well, they're beautiful lights. And by the way, I'm not taking anything away from people that are into astrology. It's like, you're killing astrology. I'm going, no, I'm not. I'm just, if the sky is just one giant, elaborate, beautiful clock system, they don't have to be trillions of miles away for it to work. It just means it's very, very close and very intimate, and it still works as always. You can, do your horoscopes all day long. It's not going to change anything. Um, Planets and the stars, yeah, they are visual displays. Are they real? Are they living entities? Are they holograms? We don't know, but whatever they are, they're not that far away. The sun and the moon, though, seem to be much, much closer and much more involved systems. Yeah, I know that some people will say, well, the moon is 2D. And it's like, yeah, maybe. It also could be 3D, though. Don't sell yourself short. I mean, whatever display system it is, there's something else that's going on there. That look up the lunar waves. Look at the blood moons, and look up why, again, the big one, which I love, and I'm so happy that the videos are out there, is why the moonlight is cold. And I don't mean it's colder at night. I mean it's physically a chilling light, like a refrigerated light, like
Mm-hmm.
a cool laser. Why is it cooler in moonlight than it is in moon shade? And when you, again, the big one there is, if you take a magnifying glass to moonlight and put it on a copper plate or whatever it is, something sensitive, and hit your digital thermometer on it, why, when you magnify moonlight, does it get even colder? That's
Right.
impossible if it's reflecting the sun's light, which means it's not reflecting the sun's light, it's its own light source. And if it's its own light source, then what the heck is the relationship that science has been telling us for all these years that that the moon is reflecting the sun's light? I mean, just everything starts to break down with the littlest things, and that's where we are now, the detection ability.
Do you think we went to the moon?
Oh God, no. No, no, no. I mean, in fact, this was such a wonderful the whole flat Earth enclosed world concept was so wonderful to me because it answered a question that I have been asking myself for 10 years at least, which was I hadn't believed in the moon thing for a long time because the moon footage has aged horribly well. I mean, horribly. It's in fact, there's been lots and lots of documentaries about why the moon footage is screwed up, but I couldn't. It was the motivation that was missing. I was like, why would you fake it? Why fake? Why spend that much money to fake the moon program? And then when I saw this, it's like, oh, I get it now. It's not that you wanted to fake it. You had to fake it. If you do not fake the moon program, if you do not send somebody up there and control space, eventually you're going to have a real hard time roping in the subcontractors to the military. And by that I mean people that actually could do a space program, like General
Hmm.
Dynamics, Boeing, Hughes Aircraft, Lockheed Martin. Take your pick. One of those guys in cooperation with, I don't know, Frito-Lay. Somebody's going up there sooner or later, and so you have to control space, and you have to fake the program. Plus, of course, the big one that I'm going to steal it from Matt, and if he's listening, he'll know what I'm talking about, and that is sooner or later. And this is the big one. You got to show a picture of the Earth from space. Sooner or later,
Hmm.
the public will demand it eventually because you're sending rockets. You've got to do it, and
Most people believe that they have already seen the pictures, though, because a lot of people, or well, the flat earthers are saying all those pictures are CGI computer
yeah.
generated images,
Well, well,
but most of the people really believe that those are real pictures,
Well,
though.
yeah, of course, but the thing was, NASA admitted it. I mean, I love the fact that, and again, shows you how great this conspiracy is. The fact that governments have been responding to this movement, where I was saying this since day one, and Matt's been saying this for like 3 or 4 years, where he's going, look, there are no pictures of the Earth from space. There's been literally one that they ever showed from 1972 until July of 2015. And we all know the picture because we've all seen it. It shows, it's the full lit. There's only one picture fully lit on the sunlight side of Earth. And you'd think, since it's an American space program, it would have been the American side. But no, it shows bottom part of Africa and all of Antarctica. And that was the only picture they put in textbooks, literally for 43 years. And we know this because when the second blue marble shot, they call it a blue marble shot, when the second blue marble shot came out in July of 20 or June or July of 2015, depending on what you're looking at, they actually announced it. They put it on the NASA website, and then all the major networks picked it up. The White House tweeted it, and Obama actually said it did a little press conference. He's going, the blue marble shot, beautiful picture of Earth, blah blah blah. And first time in 43 years, it's like, but nobody questioned it at that point. You would think that the forums would just light up and say, why 43 years? That's 2 generations of people. What, nobody took the shot? Plus, I'll throw one more. I don't want to go off on a rant. But what the bigger one for me is, why did they take it? Why did they wait all the way until 1972 to take it? You had the technology in the late 1950s. Plus, you did
Yeah.
Apollo 8. 9 doesn't count. Supposedly, it never went. Went anywhere. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. None of those missions to the moon took a shot. They waited literally until the last mission. Apollo 17, went to the moon. Everyone was bored, supposedly. Got back in, and only on the way back did they take that shot. And that's the shot they milked for 43 years. That is unbelievably bold on their part, and they kept it going for the longest time. And only when the internet came out, and only when social media came out, this thing finally starts coming to light. So there's my rant.
And most of them were Masons, correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, that's not a shocker at all. Every Apollo astronaut was a Mason, and the ones that resisted, well, heck, well, you saw what happened to Gus Grissom.
Hmm.
He was public when he came out. And I'll give you 2 things there. When he publicly came out and said, "Look, we're not going to make it. Not with the technology we've got. It's not going to happen." And then he died. Now, did he die on the rocket? No, of course not. And by that I mean, for those people who don't understand what I'm saying here, not only did we not go to the moon, there's been no astronaut that's been on the top of any rocket ever. because that's the last thing you'd want to do. You don't want to put people on top of a big pile of liquid explosives. That's not what you do if you're going to fake something, which is why the Challenger disaster of 1986 was such a conundrum for them, because the Challenger shuttle blows up, right? Supposedly 7 people died, including that teacher. But the problem was, if they weren't there, well, they had to put them in a relocation program, yeah? Like anything. And sure enough, if you look up Challenger astronauts still alive. Just put it in any search engine, and you will see, because of the internet, again, if you put your picture out there anywhere, anything on the internet sticks. And they were comparing. It's like, okay, here's what they looked like in 1986. Here's what they looked like 30 years later. Here's the pictures, and they all had really unique faces. These weren't generic McPlane Rat people. These people had, weird eyes and weird teeth and real distinctive features. And 6 of them are still alive now. And 2 of them claim to be twin brothers of the people that died in the shuttle. One was Japanese and one was black. It's unbelievably bold. It's crazy. So, anyway.
You forgot to mention space, was it Columbia?
Oh, the Columbia,
yeah, the Columbia. That exploded right over my neck of the woods in Louisiana.
Yeah, but they haven't. You're absolutely right. We haven't really focused in on that one yet. But yeah, eventually we're going to figure out where those guys are. They haven't done their work too much. The Challenger ones were very, very easy. Plus, let me throw one more at you, and that is Wernher von Braun in the late 50s. He's got a quote, saying flat out, and if I find it for you, I'll read it. I read it on another interview. I think when I did my thing with Stanton Friedman, he said, "There's no way we're going to the moon. It would take. First off, we'd send 3 rockets just to make sure something went wrong. That we wouldn't abandon anybody, and these rockets would be way too big. They'd be bigger and heavier than battleships." And it's just never going to happen. And then all of a sudden, a few years later, he's going, "Oh yeah, we can totally do this." It's like, what are you talking about? You're the father of rocket science, and even he, if you've seen some of the other stuff I've mentioned, where his headstone is very, very modest, and you'd think it'd be this giant thing of a man pointing towards the sky and a big rocket behind him and stuff like that. No, it's a simple headstone, and on it is very interesting. He has it says Psalms 19:1. And it's like, well, that's kind of odd considering he's a rocket scientist. Why, some of them, go to church, I suppose. But of all the verses that says, and the firmament shows his handiwork. That's amazing. Why is the father of rocket science talking about the firmament? Why? Why did he never talk about it before? And why is that? Why is he? That's what he's going to say from the grave.
That is kind of strange.
Yeah, it's like he knew it. It's like that's either his little dig or his little confession. One of the two, and people say, "Oh, that doesn't prove anything." It's like, really? Because he's a freaking physicist. He's actually a rocket scientist, not just any rocket scientist, the rocket scientist, and he's talking about the firmament from the grave. Yeah.
Well, since we're on NASA, okay, do you think all the Mars, everything to do with Mars, all the rovers and all the pictures, images, you think all that is fake?
Oh yeah, it's absolutely fake. The Mars rover, I won't spend too much time on the Mars rover. Look up the battery life on that thing. That battery, we all know when batteries die, like your car battery, right? They're dead. You don't bring them back. This Mars rover, that battery there, I don't care how many times it's been charged by that solar crap. That thing should have been dead 6-7 years ago. Yeah, extended 6 months, a year and a half, maybe 7 years. Come on, with varying temperatures when it gets and at one point they had lost contact with it, and then it was like, oh, it's up and running again. Here we go, and yeah, that's ridiculous. But I'll go one more further, and that is look, the entire reason NASA was created in 1958, the entire reason it was created was to help hide where you are now, and by that I mean everything that you see. Every story that they run, and they've been running a lot of stories, especially in 2015, and they're going to keep doing it in 2016. Every story you see, whether it's the face on Mars, something weird happening on Saturn, Pluto, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the story is, or even if you believe it, because once you look at it, it's all reinforcing. It all points back to the same thing, and that is face on Mars, you're on a globe. Weird thing on Saturn, you're on a globe. Oh, hey, there's Pluto, you're on a globe. It just goes over and over. Plus, look what they've Look at the stuff that's happened just in the last 30 days with NASA. They kill the Orion program, that which is supposed to be the Mars project, the biggest rocket ever built, and they're going to go to Mars. They kill that. They say, oh yeah, it's postponed indefinitely because of a probe that France was supposed to have ready, for the package, and it didn't happen. So we're just going to scrap the whole project. It's like, what? What are you talking about? You're not going to go up with a single science instrument. You're going to scrap that whole thing. And then just a couple weeks ago, they talked about it to an Albany newspaper, but there's a couple other people that talked about it. That they said, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to shut down the International Space Station. We're just going to shut it down, and we're not going to do anything more there. We're actually going to set up a base on the moon now. I was going, no, you're not. You're not going to do it. And I called it. I absolutely called the Mars one, where I said, you cannot go to Mars because you cannot, the internet detection ability, all the nerds that go out there and microscope everything. There's no way you can do it. You cannot fake it. And if they think they're going to be able to fake the moon, oh, you got another thing coming there, guys. If you think you're going to be able to pull that off, because here's your problem. That is 0G. That's easy to do in a plane. You just, take a plane up and you make a nosedive. You can simulate 0G. We all know those planes exist. But the moon is not 0G. It's 1/6. So a 180-pound man is going to weigh 30 pounds. How exactly are you going to fake that exactly? Because you think you're going to do it all with CGI? Man, you are dreaming. So yeah, that moon base, that's never going to happen either. Plus, why isn't there a moon base now? Why wasn't there a moon base starting in the mid-70s or the 80s? And why did Russia quit the space program right after we got there? It's like, oh, America got there first, darn it. Let's just pack it up. Let's just shut it all down. Just close it all down. We're done. How does that happen? Really, a Cold War? Real bitter struggle from the 50s all the way out, it's like, but no, it's because they said, no, America's got this, and they can fake it for the rest. We're not gonna spend any more money on it. So.
Isn't it kind of strange how, especially with the alternative side, so people that are into Zachariah Sitchin's work, Planet X, Nibiru, Anunnaki, isn't it strange that many people, especially in the conspiracy movement, alternative side, they say that the Earth or the moon is a satellite.
Oh yeah,
it was placed there, and it's not a. So if it's a satellite, then it's not a real object.
Well, exactly, and actually, this model doesn't change that concept that much. It just changes the size. But yeah, you're right. There's a lot of things that if we were on a globe and the moon was exactly the size, people look it up if you get a chance. That moon is extremely out of place. If you believe the globe model and how NASA's portraying it, because it's too big for the planet. You've got that weird synchronous orbit thing where we only see it rotates the same speed, the same arc of degree as we're spinning, so we only see one side of the moon. And of the fact that it covers the sun perfectly, even though it's
that was all coincidence by the Big Bang.
It's all coincidence, yeah. Not late. I'm not going to say it's a lazy development design flaw, because it's actually kind of a cool thing. It probably was deliberate because like, ooh, look, it fits over. That makes a really cool ring. But yeah, the moon is a satellite in this model. It's just much, much closer, and it was put there. And again, the biblical references to it, to where the moon and the sun were put in, kind of for the sun just kind of give a kind of a point of light, but it was kind of the sun was a daytime light, and the moon was a night light. No real special thing there, other than and the most photographed object ever.
How do flat earthers talk about, or what is the idea when it comes to eclipses, solar eclipses? How does that fit in? How does that fit into the flat Earth?
Oh, I got you. Let's do the lunar one first, because lunar one's easy, because that's just a display show on the sun. I'm sorry, on the moon. When it comes to the sun, though, a little trickier, because you could, again, if the moon is a three-dimensional object, you're going to have to do some special stuff with that. You'd have to combine display issues with the sun and the moon, because again, the sun in this model is a directional light source. It can't, because people say that all the time. They say, why? Like, for example, they'll say, how can there even be time zones? Wouldn't the sun just illuminate everything at once? And it's like, no, because the sun's light isn't as powerful. If it's very, very small, by comparison, it doesn't do it. So solar eclipses, it's tricky. We don't know all the details yet. Only that there's a combination. It could be a combination of three-dimensional objects and two-dimensional objects. We're not sure.
Okay, I'm going to play skeptic just for a second.
Sure.
Okay, when it comes to NASA, academia, scientists,
Hmm.
phys why are they all wrong, or are they a part of this whole agenda when it comes to trying to, I guess, make everybody believe that the Earth is a globe?
They're just all wrong. It's not that they're in on it. As a matter of fact, something like this, where it's so,
It's hard to say it's departmentalized. You know,
yeah,
it's
well,
hard to
yeah,
say it's like that.
well, yeah, you can't. There's some people that know, absolutely, but all your wrench turners, anybody that builds something, no, they're not in on it. But mostly because this really weighs on you. I mean, again, they learn. I will say this: the authority learns from its mistakes, and that is look at the Apollo astronauts. Most of those guys turned into train wrecks afterwards. Now, mostly because they were getting accolades all the time, and schools named after them, and ticker tape parades and crap like that.
Mhm.
But also because they knew, because it's like, holy, they're told, oh yeah, by the way, you're going to be faking this launch, and here's why: because the Earth actually isn't a globe. It's you're in a big terrarium. And that weighs on people really, really heavily, and they learn that. So, like all the astronauts that are flying around now in their khakis and their polo shirts and their socks, again, why are they not wearing shoes? I have no idea. They aren't told. They're told, oh yeah, you're going to be faking something, and you don't have enough security clearance to even ask why. When it comes to the scientists, that's the same thing. Anyone that's faking something, they're not told why they're going to be faking something.
Yeah.
Why would they? The only people that would have any idea would be the people at the very, very top. Anybody that's, in fact, it would just be so few people that would need to know. I mean, people have asked me, like, does Neil deGrasse Tyson know? Or Bill Deny the Science Guy? It's like, I don't think Bill would know. Neil probably knows.
Hmm.
Maybe. Or at least he's probably guessed. I don't know if he's actually been briefed. But in something like this, really, less is more. And that is, the smallest amount of people you can get away with this thing, the better, because it's just too big a concept. I mean, look at what happens when you tell people about this. I mean, the forums just turn into these just battlegrounds. And even the flat Earth movement itself. I mean, people are just freaking losing it on each other. And it's mostly because this thing is so huge. It plays with your mind. I mean, I've got a theory as of recently, and that is the concept is so big that it opens your mind. In fact, I'll use a Star God's quote, even though he doesn't like me right now, which is he said, "You want to test how open-minded a person is? Here, try this on. It's called flat Earth spray, and you hit them in the face with it, and they see it's like, you still open-minded, right? And then people are like resisting. It's like, no, it can't be real. I know lizard people are real, but not this. And but what happens is once you get your head around it, once you absorb it, you become really, really open-minded to just about anything, including a lot of added suspicion, in my opinion. And with that comes, it's like, I'm still in from the Twilight Zone episode. The monsters are due on Maple Street, where people just start. You don't know who to trust, and that's a question that David Weiss threw at me, and that is, if this is real. I firmly believe is real. If they're actually saying that, if the world you're living on, you've been lied to about that, then they probably lied about everything. Just and at that
Yeah.
point, what can you trust? And unfortunately, you're going to have to trust some stuff. But who do you trust? Who's in on it? Who's not in on it? The paranoia scale goes way up, and look, part of the reason why I haven't lashed out at a lot of people is because I just can't. I won't look at it. I'm trying to stay as objective and level-headed about this as possible. But when I first found out, oh yeah, I mean, I was literally banging my head on the keyboard, going, I can't, because no one likes to be fooled. No one likes to think they were fooled and tricked, by the biggest trick of all, and that you don't live where you think you live.
Yeah, just like earlier in the show, I mentioned about this simulated universe.
Yeah,
Regardless if flat Earth exists or the globe model exists,
yeah.
regardless, I think that we are still. I'm kind of new when it comes to the simulated universe, but I think that's what we really are in. Just like we're all ones and zeros, we are actually living in a matrix.
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah, when you're going to break it down that far, absolutely. And that is, yeah, regardless of whether it's flat or round, although I'm a huge believer in flat. Yeah, if you're going to start to break down what is matter, what is, are we, do we, if we go down to the subatomic level, if the energy, if it took energy to create us, because we all are, we're just all big bunches of energy, then what put all that energy together? And you're absolutely right. Could at that point could it be ones and zeros? We don't know, but it's a great concept. I love it,
Okay.
especially coming from the gaming world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And one more thing I want to bring about before we kind of wrap it up for this time.
Hmm.
I'm going to play skeptic again. How do flat earthers prove or disprove gravity?
Oh, that's actually not that bad. And that is, well, ask mainstream science. I'll put it back on mainstream, and that is how
Okay.
they even mainstream will go flat out and tell you, flat out. I didn't mean to say that. They will tell you that they don't know what gravity is. It's a hard thing to explain, and that is when you drop a pencil, what makes it fall to the floor? Is it because it's density? Is it because there's mass underneath you, and the only way that could happen is if you believe the science explanation that that we're in a ball in space, hanging in the vacuum of space, and if you're in that, then everything gets drawn to it. The thing is, though, in a flat model, it still works that way. It still could be density. I mean, if you're in a snow globe, in the snow globe, depending on where it is, if it's on a bigger model, there's still going to be gravity. Now, I'm not the believer that says that because some people say, well, that it's simulated gravity that's pushing the flat model is actually traveling upwards, and it's creating some sort of a minor g-force. And then there's another one that talks about that it's buoyancy, no differently than if you're trying to hold a beach ball underwater type of thing. But gravity is, in this scenario, for me anyway, it is what we say it is. So let's say, for example, we'll talk about your digital universe here.
Hmm.
And if you know the gaming world at all, you know exactly
Yeah.
what gravity is, and that is gravity is what you say it is, because it's literally when you build it in any sort of digital simulation, it's no different than a molecular magnet, and
Hmm.
that is we all know what magnets do to metal, but what if you had a magnet that could do anything to anything like water or organics or whatever? If you put that molecular magnet below you and turned it on, what's the difference between that and what we perceive as gravity now? There is none. And at that point, then it's just a matter of switch. You can make a guy 100 pounds, you can make him 500 pounds. It's just a setting. So for me, it's a molecular magnet system. That's the easiest way to do it, because then it's completely customizable.
Well, Mark, that's about going to wrap it up for this time,
All
and I'm going to have you on again just because I still have a ton more questions.
right.
But how can people find your work, and where can they find your flat Earth clues?
Oh yeah. Easiest way to find just the basic stuff is to either Google Flat Earth Clues or any search engine that you're using, or you can go to YouTube and type in Flat Earth Clues. The website is, I'm sorry, the YouTube channel is Mark K. Sargent, which is just my name. And then the website, which just pretty much just mirrors everything on YouTube, is called enclosedworld.com.
And don't you have a radio show as well?
Oh, I'm sorry, because they're probably listening. So I've mentioned the radio show.
I
Well,
think you already did.
the radio show is also on the website, but the radio show is on Truth Frequency Radio, and it's called Strange World. But again, you'll find all those episodes of
Uh-huh.
Strange World on YouTube, and it's also on the website.
All right, Mark. Well, I appreciate it, man.
Thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed being here.
All right, you have a good one.
All right, bye bye.
All right, bye.